What if the gut instinct that made you a wildly successful executive isn't actually a superpower at all?
Right.
Like, what if it's, I don't know, just a childhood defense mechanism that's designed to mask your own terror?
Yeah, it is a deeply uncomfortable proposition,
Hmm.
especially in, a business culture that practically mythologizes the instinctual leader.
Oh, absolutely.
We have this pervasive archetype, right, of the brilliant founder or CEO who can walk into a chaotic boardroom, look at a massively complex problem, and just make a split-second decision based purely on intuition.
Yeah,
It projects absolute confidence, and we are taught to revere it.
we really are. But today's deep dive is going to completely dismantle that mythology. We are going to explore the hidden psychological forces that drive extreme success
Hmm.
and the absolute anxiety that comes with changing how we make decisions, and ultimately, how a leader actually learns to let go of their own ego.
It's a huge topic.
It is.
Mhm.
And to do this, we are looking at a really brilliant stack of sources today.
Yeah, we are.
The foundation is this fascinating In-Seed Master's thesis by Nikolai Bank on the psychodynamics of executive decision-making.
Which, I mean, that is heavy clinical material on its own.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is exactly why we're pairing it with, like, the ultimate tangible case study,
Right.
Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
We are looking at excerpts from Roland Lazenby's definitive biography, Michael Jordan, The Life, along with transcripts from Jordan's famously raw Hall of Fame induction speech.
Oh, man, that speech.
I know, right?
Oh.
And a deep dive interview he did years later with Cigar Aficionado. So we're going to apply these very abstract theories about executive anxiety to arguably the most hyper-competitive human being in modern history.
It's such a perfect pairing because the thesis really forces us to look past the typical sports narratives of, willpower and drive.
Right. Well,
It asks us to look at the psychological engine that's actually generating that drive. And to understand that engine, the thesis starts with a psychodynamic concept called the inner theater.
okay, let's unpack this because the inner theater. The thesis states that this is shaped by early childhood experiences, specifically what they call object relations.
Right.
Now, I have to admit, I had some confusion here because object relations sounds like a, I don't know, data structure at a spreadsheet or something out of computer science.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean in a psychological context?
It is a terrible piece of clinical jargon, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah. So in psychoanalysis, objects usually refer to people,
Okay.
specifically your primary caregivers. So object relations theory basically argues that as an infant and a young child, your interactions with your parents create this subconscious template.
Oh, I see.
You learn how to get attention, how to feel safe, and ultimately how to survive emotionally.
So you're basically building a cast of characters and a set of storylines in your head based on whatever worked when you were like 5 years old.
Precisely, yes. And that template becomes your inner theater. You carry this subconscious script with you into adulthood. And it directs your behavior from behind the scenes, dictating how you react to stress, how you handle authority and competition.
Wow.
So the thesis argues that if you want to understand an executive's boardroom decisions, you first have to figure out what their inner theater is trying to resolve or, protect them from.
Protect them
plain.
from, right. And when you apply that exact lens to Michael Jordan, things start to just click into place instantly.
They really do.
If you read the Lazenby biography, the curtain on Jordan's inner theater is just wide open.
Yeah.
His ferocious competitive drive wasn't just born out of a pure, joyful love for the game of basketball. It was forged in a childhood environment where he felt he was constantly fighting for the approval of his father, James.
Right. The family dynamic is really the origin point for his entire operating system.
Yeah, because James Jordan initially favored Michael's older brother, Larry. Larry was the standout athlete of the family in those early years. And in his Hall of Fame speech, Michael gets up on stage and talks about fighting his brother Larry every single day.
Oh, yeah?
He says they fought so viciously and so often that their mother had to constantly pull them apart.
Wow.
He was essentially battling his own brother for oxygen,
Yeah.
for his father's attention and validation.
And think about what that does to a developing psyche, right?
Yeah.
The lesson that Michael internalized in that environment, his primary object relation, was that love, attention, and basic emotional survival depended entirely on proving he was individually superior to the person standing next to him.
Wow. And he took that script with him everywhere he went for the rest of his life.
He really did.
Because decades later, at his Hall of Fame induction, which, I mean, that is supposed to be a night of celebration and grace, right?
Right, yeah.
He brings up a guy named Leroy Smith.
Oh, the Leroy Smith story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leroy was the player who famously made the high school varsity team over Michael. And Michael is 50 years old on that stage. He is universally recognized as the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
And he is still using Leroy Smith as a psychological punching bag.
Yeah, he even invited him to the ceremony, right?
Yes, he invited him just to bring it up. And he even brought up his college roommate, Buzz Peterson.
Oh, right.
Buzz won High School Player of the Year in North Carolina. And Michael flat out admitted on stage that he put a target on Buzz's back from day one just to prove he was better.
Which just perfectly illustrates the durability of the inner theater.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much external success you achieve, the internal script is incredibly rigid.
It doesn't change.
No. Jordan's behavioral script was a deeply defensive obsession with individual dominance. But if your core psychological drive is to prove you are individually superior to everyone around you, you develop a profound reluctance to rely on or trust others.
Because relying on someone else means you are no longer the one in total, absolute control of your own survival.
Exactly. And in a team environment or, a corporate structure, an inability to trust your colleagues is a massive liability.
It's huge. And let's map this back to the listener for a second.
Sure.
Because for anyone listening who manages a team, this is basically the psychological equivalent of being that senior software engineer who insists on doing every single final code review yourself.
Oh, yeah. We all know that person.
Right. You tell yourself it's about quality control. But really, you secretly do not trust your junior developers to execute.
Exactly.
And you are terrified of the project failing if you take your hands off the wheel.
It is the exact same mechanism. The executive who micromanages is usually acting out a defensive script from their inner theater.
Right.
They're managing their own anxiety. They're not actually managing their team.
But if your whole ego is wrapped up in doing everything yourself, what happens when a problem becomes too complex for one human brain to process in real time?
Well, that's the wall they hit.
Because that's exactly what Daniel Kahneman's dual process model tells us, right?
Yay.
Which is this next major layer of the inset thesis.
Yes. Kahneman's framework is absolutely essential for understanding the mechanics of how we actually make choices under pressure.
Okay.
He divides the brain's processing into System 1 and System 2.
Right. And I kept trying to visualize this while I was reading the thesis. I think the best way to describe it is that System 1 is kind of like autocomplete on your phone.
Okay, I like that.
It is fast, it is automatic, it operates entirely on intuition and past habits, and it requires zero conscious effort. You just react.
Right.
But System 2, on the other hand, is when you have to turn off autocomplete and manually type out a complex, highly sensitive, diplomatic email.
Yeah.
It takes immense cognitive effort, it is deliberate, and it is agonizingly slow.
That is a very accurate analysis. System 1 is your gut reaction, and System 2 is your analytical reasoning. And what the thesis reveals is that executives, despite all their MBA training and, all these analytical tools they have, they predominantly rely on System 1.
Which makes sense in a chaotic environment, I guess.
It does. They face immense information overload. So System 1 acts as a cognitive shortcut.
Right.
It allows them to recognize patterns and make rapid-fire decisions based on their automated expertise.
And returning to our case study, nobody in human history had a more highly charged System 1 than Michael Jordan on a basketball court.
No one.
His physical intuition, his automated expertise, it made him an unmatched individual scoring machine.
Yeah.
I mean, he could read a defense and physically react in a fraction of a millisecond.
Yeah.
It was pure, unadulterated System 1 ego and instinct.
It was. And for the first part of his career, that System 1 brilliance was enough to make him a global superstar.
But it wasn't enough to win championships.
Exactly. Because teams like the Detroit Pistons or the Boston Celtics, they realized that if they just collapsed 5 defenders on Jordan, his System 1 instinct would still force him to try and beat them all by himself.
Right, the famous Jordan rules.
Yes.
And this is where the narrative hits the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Because management steps in.
Right.
The Bulls bring in head coach Phil Jackson and assistant coach Tex Winter, and they introduce the infamous triangle offense.
Yes.
And I really want to dig into the mechanics of this because triangle offense isn't just a playbook. It is like the ultimate System 2 structural framework.
It really is. It is a collective, deliberate processing system.
Okay.
The triangle offense relies on spatial geometry and constant movement. So unlike a play that's called for a specific player, the triangle dictates that the players read the defense collectively.
I see.
The reaction of the defense dictates where the ball goes next based on a predefined set of options. So it completely removes the hero ball element.
Wow, so it demands a transition from a fast, individual System 1 game where Jordan just reacts and attacks to this slow, deliberate, collective System 2 game where he has to wait, space the floor, and trust that the system will eventually generate the best possible shot for the team,
Right.
regardless of whose hands the ball is in.
And Jordan fought this bitterly.
Oh, I bet.
He despised it initially. He felt they were deliberately taking the ball out of his hands and forcing him to rely on less talented players.
But looking at that resistance through the lens of the instead thesis, we can finally understand why he fought it so hard.
Yes.
It wasn't just a tactical disagreement about basketball strategy.
Not at all.
Banks' research highlights that moving from a comfortable System 1 intuition to a collective System 2 process causes extreme anxiety in leaders.
Yeah.
It creates a phenomenon the thesis calls management fright.
Management fright. Yes, it's the dread of losing control.
Wow.
Because remember, Jordan's inner theater, right?
Right. Fighting his brother.
Exactly. His entire psychological safety net, his proven method of surviving and gaining approval since he was a kid fighting his brother, was based on individual dominance.
Wow. So Phil Jackson isn't just asking him to pass the basketball.
Whoa.
He is asking Jordan to completely dismantle his primary psychological defense mechanism.
Yes. To Jordan, relying on a teammate felt like a literal existential threat.
That is so wild. But it reframes one of the most legendary stories from his Hall of Fame speech.
Oh, the Tex Winter story.
Yes. He talks about coming to the bench during a particularly frustrating game.
Yeah.
And Tex Winter looks at him and says, "Michael, there's no I in team."
Yeah.
And Jordan snaps back, "But there's an I in win."
Right. And it's usually held up as this ultimate alpha male quote.
Yeah, like this bad boy swagger moment.
Yeah.
But reading this thesis, I realized that retort was actually a psychological shield.
That's exactly what it was.
It was his ego fiercely defending itself against the terrifying anxiety of having to depend on, John Paxson or Bill Cartwright to secure a victory.
Because the anxiety of uncertainty is paralyzing for that type of inner theater. If Jordan gives up the ball, he gives up his agency. And if the team loses while someone else takes the final shot, his inner theater screams that he failed to survive.
Wow.
And that he is unworthy of the attention he craves.
Okay, I have to push back here for a second, or at least, play devil's advocate.
Sure.
Because the thesis takes this a step further. And it introduces a concept that I honestly found incredibly difficult to swallow at first.
Okay, let's hear it.
We are talking about Michael Jordan.
Oh.
Widely considered the most ruthless, cold-blooded competitor in the history of professional sports.
Absolutely.
And yet, to explain how he finally accepted the triangle offense, the thesis introduces this concept of a transitional object.
Yes.
You are telling me that Michael Jordan fundamentally needed a security blanket, like a toddler. That feels like a massive academic stretch to me.
I completely understand the skepticism. It sounds absurd on the surface, but you really have to look at the psychological mechanics of what a transitional object actually does.
Okay, explain it to me.
So the concept comes from a British psychoanalyst named Donald Winnicott.
Okay.
Winnicott studied how infants manage the intense anxiety of separating from their mothers, because the mother is the infant's entire world, right? Their total source of security.
Right.
So as the child begins to realize they are separate from the mother, they experience profound existential terror.
The terror of being alone in the unknown.
Exactly. And to soothe that terror, a child will often adopt a transitional object, a literal security blanket or a teddy bear.
Yeah.
Winnicott noted that this object is the child's first not-me possession. The blanket is not the mother, but it represents the mother's security.
Oh, I see.
It acts as a container that absorbs the child's anxiety, allowing them to safely explore the external world without just falling apart.
Okay, I follow the toddler's psychology.
Right.
But how does Banks' thesis map a teddy bear onto an executive boardroom or a basketball court?
Well, by understanding that when an executive faces tumultuous change, like, say, shifting from their comfortable System 1 intuition to a terrifying, unfamiliar System 2 collective process, yeah.
They experience a very similar separation anxiety.
Really?
Yeah, they're separating from their own ego, from the instinctual methods that have kept them safe their entire careers.
Wow. So the old way of doing things is the mother they are separating from.
Precisely. And the thesis argues that a structured collective decision-making system can act as that security blanket for the executive.
Oh, wow.
A framework, a set of strict operational procedures, or a defined strategic process, becomes the not me possession.
Okay.
It provides a structured container that literally holds the executive's anxiety while they slowly let go of direct control.
So the triangle offense was Michael Jordan's security blanket.
Functionally, yes. It provided a predefined script for where the ball goes next, which removed the terrifying burden of in-the-moment, split-second decision-making from his shoulders alone.
That makes the climax of the Lazenby biography read like a completely different story.
It really changes the whole perspective, doesn't it?
It really does. Because it's the 1991 NBA Finals, the Bulls are playing Magic Johnson and the Lakers.
The pressure is suffocating.
Yeah.
Jordan has never won a championship, and the whole narrative around him is that he is just a selfish scorer who can't lead a team to a title.
Right.
And during a crucial timeout, Phil Jackson looks at Jordan and asks him who is open.
Yeah.
Jackson explicitly orders him to find the open man.
And it is the ultimate high-stakes test of System 2.
Right.
Can he trust the collective process when his entire body, his entire inner theater, is screaming at him to revert to System 1?
And he does it.
He does.
Jordan goes back out, he drives to the basket, draws the defense, and instead of forcing an impossible acrobatic shot over 3 guys, he passes.
Yeah.
He passes the ball to a wide-open John Paxson.
Mm-hmm.
And he does it over and over again down the stretch. Paxson hits the shots, and they win the championship.
It is the defining pivot of his career.
Right.
And through the clinical lens of this thesis, we can see that passing to Paxson was not merely a tactical realization.
Right.
It was a profound psychological surrender.
Wow. By fully committing to the triangle fence, Jordan used that collective framework as his transitional object.
Exactly.
He allowed the geometric structure of the system to absorb his anxiety. He finally realized he did not have to carry the psychological burden of saving the world entirely by himself.
Which is huge, because that distributes the psychological weight of winning across the entire organization.
Right.
By managing his own inner theater, he unlocked the potential of everyone around him. He created genuine psychological safety for his teammates because they finally felt trusted to execute.
And that is what burst a 6-time championship dynasty.
Yes.
It's the ultimate evolution of an executive, really. Recognizing that your individual System 1 brilliance has a hard ceiling. And that true scale requires managing your own terror enough to build a System 2 structure that empowers others.
It's beautiful in theory, but the narrative doesn't actually end neatly with the confetti falling in the 1990s.
Right. Because human psychology is rarely cured so easily.
Unfortunately, no.
Which brings us to the final source in our stack. The deep dive interview Jordan gave to Cigar Aficionado years after he retired from playing.
Right.
Because we get to see what happens when the context changes and the transitional object is removed.
This is where it gets really telling.
Yeah. We jump forward to Jordan's life in the front office when he becomes the general manager of the Washington Wizards and later the owner of the Charlotte Hornets.
The historical record, and honestly his own admissions in that interview, paint a picture of immense struggle in those executive roles.
He struggled massively. In the interview, he talks about how uniquely agonizing it is to sit up in the owner's box during a game.
Oh, yeah.
He says he is forced to, quote, live vicariously through the players that you select.
Right.
He's drafting talent, evaluating coaches, and waiting months or even years to see if a systemic decision actually pans out.
He is operating entirely in the abstract realm of System 2.
Yes. And crucially, he no longer has a physical way to intervene. When he was a player, even when he completely bought into the triangle offense as his transitional object, he was still physically standing on the hardwood.
Right.
If things got truly desperate, if the system just broke down, he still had a physical outlet for his System 1 instinct. He could just grab the ball and impact the game.
The physical act of playing basketball, the ball itself, was the anchor for his transitional object.
But in the front office, he is stripped of it completely.
Completely.
And what happens? All of those old anxieties come rushing back. His inner theater just takes over again.
Yeah, the need for total control, the deep distrust of others to get the job done, it all rears its head in the boardroom.
Right. He couldn't handle watching players who didn't share his, frankly, psychotic level of drive.
No.
And he couldn't just sub himself into the game to fix their mistakes. He was trapped.
And this raises a critical point about psychodynamic theory, and it perfectly echoes the conclusion of Banks' thesis.
Okay.
You cannot act on what you are not aware of. A new job title, a new office, a new team, none of that magically erases your childhood object relations.
It really makes you wonder, did Michael Jordan ever fundamentally heal his inner theater?
That's the big question.
Or did he simply find a brilliantly effective structural workaround in the triangle offense that managed his symptoms while he was physically on the court.
It seems like it was a workaround, because once you removed it, the underlying defensive script was still running the show.
If a leader does not actively build awareness of their own biases and their own internal script, as the thesis warns, they will simply keep recreating their defensive patterns in every new environment they enter,
Every single time.
which is such a powerful mirror to hold up to ourselves.
It really is.
Think about your own career. Think about those gut instincts you rely on every single day, the ones you are so proud of.
Right.
Are they actually serving your team? Or are they just a childhood script playing out in the middle of a strategy meeting?
It's a tough question to ask yourself. What is your inner theater protecting you from?
Yeah. Are you terrified of taking your hands off the wheel because trusting your team feels like an existential threat to your own value?
And if that is the case, the question becomes, what structural system, what transitional object do you actually need to build so that you finally feel safe enough to pass the ball?
Exactly. But, it leaves you with an even bigger, slightly terrifying thought for the future.
Oh.
If the frameworks and systems we build at work are essentially just security blankets designed to manage our human anxiety,
Yeah.
what happens when AI comes along and takes the blanket away?
Oh, wow.
What happens when the system itself becomes fully automated and we are left with nothing but our inner theaters?
That is a terrifying thought.
Keep questioning those instincts, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.